demonstrated an operation of the F-110 throughout its life, the tolerance to foreign object damage, the bird ingestion, and we've taken steps for the S-69N version of this engine to increase that even more. And combat proven around the world in all the environments that the S-engine operates in, hot, high, dry, humid, great combat record. So we have the performance of the most powerful version of the F-110 that were fielded for F-16, safety, reliability, and maintainability we're bringing to the table. What we think is the best engine offered in the competition. Here's the family line, if you will, for the F-16. The F-16 Block 30s is where the General Electric engine was first introduced into the fleet. For the aviation history buffs, you probably recall the original F-16 flew a Pratt & Whitney engine, and some F-16s today still use Pratt & Whitney engine. The General Electric 110 was introduced in the Block 30 aircraft and flown by a number of countries. For the Block 50s, the engine was upgraded to the Dash 129 version of the 110 engine. For the Block 60, we advanced it again to a higher thrust level in the Dash 132 version of the engine. And today for India on the S-69, we're offering a version called the 132A, which builds upon the 132 for Block 60 with some additional improvements, and I'll briefly go into that. Altogether for the F-110 family of engines, over almost 3,000 engines in service, S-16 and a few other platforms I might add, 7 million flight hours of operation. So an enormous base in order to make the claims we think we can make about safety, reliability, and performance. Let's talk a little bit about how General Electric has evolved this engine over time. Not going into too much detail, but you can see here the first two versions of the 110, the Dash 100 and the Dash 129. There's 28,000 pounds of thrust for this engine, and we rated the life, if you will, the endurance of the engine at what, 3,000 cycles. And let me explain briefly cycles without getting too deep in engineering. You know, it's easy for electromechanical systems, electronics, or a motor, an engine, even a fighter engine to operate for a long period of time in a constant setting. If it's just spinning there and cruise conditions, it can fly forever as long as you provide it fuel and oil. What really uses up the life of an engine, most electromechanical systems, is speeding them up, slowing them down, accelerating, decelerating, turning it off, turning it on. On an engine, it's primarily temperature cycles, so as the aircraft goes through repeated accelerations or engagements of the afterburner, back to the idle, back to the afterburner, those are the kind of things that really use up the life of the engine. So we found it much better to track the life of fighter engines. It's done across the engines in the U.S. by what are called cycles. And cycle, there's a very detailed description about what that involves. I won't go into that here. If you want some more details, we can certainly get you that. The 3,000 cycles is a very respectable lifespan for the engine. However, as General Electric has worked on incorporating new technology into the engine, you can see across here for that same level of thrust, 28,000 pounds thrust, they've improved certain parts of the engine. As time goes on, you see where the engine will wear quicker. For instance, there's a particular part of the engine that needs to be changed, have a design change. They've made those design changes. They've been able to grow the life of the engine from 3,000 cycles to 4,300 cycles in this engine. At the same time, they worked to increase the thrust of the engine. Here we show the Dash 129 version, 29,000 pounds of thrust, a little bit of thrust increase, starting out at 4,000 cycles, and again, incorporating changes to the cores of the engines. They've increased the durability of the engine, the lifetime of the engine, on up to 4,300 cycles. A lot of this technology has come from a program called the CFM56-7, which is a joint venture that General Electric had with developing technologies. And now we come to the 132 engine. So we've done two things here. One is we've been able to increase the thrust of the engine, 32,000 pounds of thrust. We've increased the durability of the engine. The original 4,000 cycles here, the 4,300s, now we've done this engine up here. Inserting new technologies. Won't go into a lot of detail of these technologies, but for instance, the blisk fan means that we basically build the fan of the engine as one piece. So instead of having a hub with blades, fan blades attached individually. The fan is constructed as a single unit, so it's much more durable and lasts longer. Now, if your engines have gotten so good, so reliable, there's no discernible difference between twin-engine aircraft and single-engine aircraft. So there's other reasons for putting twin-engine aircraft in the fleet, such as F-22 example I mentioned. It's not driven by safety concerns. As I pointed out, it's not just a phenomena of the United States. Around the world, every partner and country that's buying the F-35 now, participating in the F-35 program, is essentially saying, yep, we understand, we buy, we believe you. The F-35, single-engine F-35, it's fully capable of replacing all these aircraft. One in particular I want to mention is of course, the United States Navy. Traditionally, the Navy likes two engines. What happens if you lose an engine when you're out over the water? You can't get back to the carrier and land. We were able to convince the U.S. Navy during the early phases of the JSF program that we can build an engine, an aircraft system reliable enough that it's no longer a concern. You see, the world, if you will, has transitioned to single-engine aircraft. Let's talk about foreign object damage a bit here, too. One of the leading causes of failure for an engine is the ingestion of debris. Well, either a bird in the air or a rock on the ground where you're taxiing. The F-16 in general and the 132 engine in particular have been designed to minimize the effects of the fall of the aircraft. The engine itself has incorporated fault-tolerant designs such as the one-piece fan that I talked about earlier. The fan is the part of the engine that would receive the worst of the damage if something is ingested into the inlet. So we've taken great pains, and General Electric has worked with us very closely on how you make the fan as durable as possible. And also in the case of a very large object that does get in the engine and destroys the fan, how do you contain the damage within the engine? So fan containment, another technology. At the same time, we've done our part on the aircraft side as well. For instance, if you look at where the nose gear is on the F-16, it's placed after the engine inlet, so that any debris kicked up by the nose gear as you're taxiing down the runway or takeoff and landing will not be thrown up into the engine inlet. Single piece inlet with no moving parts. A lot of aircraft today have very complicated variable geometry inlets to compensate for performance deficiencies in the aircraft and the engine. We don't have that with the F-16. We're able to operate the engine very efficiently, very effectively over the entire operating envelope of the aircraft with a fixed inlet. Therefore, there's no chance of actuation parts or panels or linkages coming off within the inlet and being sucked down the engine. And we demonstrated this with over 4,000 F-16s flying around the world in every conceivable environment. What about the 132 in particular? That aircraft now, that engine has over 30,000 hours of operation. The Block 60, 4 years of operational experience. We've had 10 instances of FOD damage to the engine on the ground, where something got sucked into the inlet and damaged the engine. In all cases, we were able to perform maintenance on the engine at the intermediate shop level, the eye level, if you will, and put that engine back in service. So we've lost no engines. They've all been serviced, repaired, put back into the fleet. We've also had 9 bird strikes. We've not lost a single aircraft flying the 132 to a bird strike. Again, all the engines were repaired, put back in service. Flying today. In 2009, when we were here for Aero India, was brought Block 60 aircraft with 132 engine. We actually ingested a bird during Aero India on one of the demonstration flights. The aircraft completed the demonstration flight without incident, landed, and performed routine maintenance on the engine. So its next demonstration flight right on schedule. If you accepted the fact that the single engine is just safe enough that you can rely on it for day-to-day operations, you design your aircraft and your engine properly to minimize the effects of FOD, what does that get you? Well, it yields large savings. Looking at 3 aspects of cost here. First is, what is the mean flight flight time between failure. So how long can you fly the aircraft before you have to take it down for maintenance? Well, a single engine aircraft, if you just think about it, is typically going to be twice as reliable as a twin engine aircraft just on the engine itself. Plus there's additional parts and pieces that wrap around that second engine which are prone to failure. So you see a much better mean time failure between flight hours on single engine aircraft. Unscheduled maintenance and the time it takes to do those repairs. So the engine suffered a failure for whatever reason. You're doing a non-scheduled, non-depot level maintenance. Again, much quicker, much easier to maintain the aircraft with a single engine than it is with an engine. Finally, if we bring all that together and look at the life cycle cost of the aircraft, this includes both the acquisition cost of the aircraft, what it costs to buy it initially, as well as the support and operations cost of the aircraft, you can see distinct advantage towards single engine aircraft. This, by the way, is one of the reasons that the F-35 is single engine. The F-35 was, by design, one of the tenets of that program is how can we make the best performance out of an aircraft that the fifth generation technology can still make it affordable. One of the ways that was done was incorporating only a single engine into the aircraft. So increased reliability, faster maintenance, lead to reduced cost.